Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
One of the headlines was $9 billion company down to zero. And your investors and your board members are reading those same things. It's probably the most important question I think anybody who's watching has about this. Does it work?
Yes.
You're confident in that?
I am confident in that.
But she knew better than anyone how brilliant it was for PR and marketing. She's one of the best con artists in the United States and amazingly hasn't been arrested yet. Her business didn't make any sense. Medical testing is not a profitable business, look. And her company, Theranos, was selling tests at below market prices. Also, the girl has no scientific education. But how did Elizabeth Holmes become the slickest con girl in Silicon Valley? What was her real goal? And was she really trying to help people the way she was saying, "We will help you"? In this video, I'll answer each of these questions and tell you about the quirks and some of the crazy things she did to keep a billion-dollar dream alive. And we have to start with the most talked about thing when it comes to this con girl, and it's ridiculously deep, ugly sounding baritone voice. It kind of hits you the moment you hear it, like appearance and the voice don't match. So was it actually real? Well, let's listen to it first and see.
Real-time access to health information. And we want to be the vehicle for making early detection and prevention realities for as many people as possible. Up until that point, the way that they had to draw blood is through a needle in his neck. And it's so painful and so dehumanizing that it's an incredibly emotional process. So what is interesting about the way that technology can be applied is we certainly didn't design this with that use case in mind.
You can clearly hear that Holmes slips into her normal voice that sounds, believe it or not, normal, like a normal person. And Theranos employees busted her when she was speaking normal voice after drinking too much during parties and momentarily fell out of character. Oops. There goes Steve Jobs' positioning. Why did she do it? Because Silicon Valley is so male-dominated that when it comes to raising millions of dollars, perception is everything, especially when you're a female CEO. Speaking in deeper voice made her instantly more attractive to old billionaire-dollar investors and added to her facade of confidence. And she was good, very good, to keep faking her voice for that long. She founded Theranos in 2003 when she was just 19, dropping out of Stanford University in California. And then over the next decade, she raised nearly $900 million from investors, and Theranos was valued at nearly $10 billion at its peak. And Holmes was in her 20s, and then the company claimed to have invented blood testing technology that could help diagnose 200 conditions in a few minutes from a pinprick of blood from a fingertip. Another big thing that Theranos did, she desperately tried to channel Steve Jobs in everything, starting from Jobs' famous icy Miyake turtleneck look that she started copying in 2007. You see, Silicon Valley is full of weird dudes, like really weird dudes. Steve Jobs wore the same black turtleneck every day, tended to only park in handicapped spots, and that's most innocent examples. Mark Zuckerberg went through a phase during which he would only eat meat of animals he had personally killed. That is a good one. Shigeru Miyamoto, the Nintendo video game legend, is so obsessed with estimating the size of things that he carries around a measurement tape. But it gets crazier. Peter Thiel had expressed interest in restorative properties of blood transfusions from young people. Like, that's insane. And of course, I have to mention Jack Dorsey, who drinks a strange lemon water cocktail every morning and goes on 10-day silent retreats while wearing designer clothes and Apple Watch. All that to say that Holmes didn't want to be left too far behind, and she cherry-picked from her elders. She tracked down and stocked up on the exact icy Miyake mock turtlenecks favored by Jobs himself. She drank strange green juices, traveled with armed bodyguards. That's not bad. She frequently referred to Theranos blood testing systems as the iPod of healthcare and nicknamed one of the systems the 4S, obviously an obvious reference to the iPhone. One of the most bizarre details about Holmes is that she wouldn't blink or break an eye contact when talking to people. This was literally lifted from Walter Isaacson's biography of Jobs, who taught himself to stare at people without blinking like this, in order to gain influence over them. She also encased her Theranos office with bulletproof glass. That girl wasn't stupid. It wasn't a PR move. You don't normally need a bulletproof glass in most cases for normal CEOs, but when you're in the middle of an $8 billion con and everyone starts to realize it, that's when proof from the bullets comes in handy. So Theranos company was making this machine, magic machine, they called it the Edison, that would make hundreds of tests, run hundreds of tests from one single drop of blood. And it would be more accurate than huge industrial machines that are used normally right now in the United States. So the first deal, or one of the first big deals that Elizabeth Holmes done with other companies was Walgreens. It's the second largest pharmacy chain in the United States. They've installed Theranos blood testing booths in about 40 of its stores. But most of the tests never worked. A former employee said that if 100 people had syphilis, only 65 tested positive. And when a Wall Street Journal reporter exposed the gap between the wild claims and reality, Theranos unleashed its lawyers. One of the whistleblowers' families actually had to sell their home to cover legal fees. Now, one of the really big moves Holmes made was to cleverly surround herself with big politicians to shield herself from regulators in the future. That was her idea. The all too impressive board members were none other than former Secretary of State Henry Kissinger, former Secretary of Defense Bill Perry, former Secretary of State George Shultz, former Senators Sam Nunn and Bill Frist, former Navy Admiral Gary Rockhat, and former Marine Corps General and current Secretary of Defense James Mad Dog Matisse. Impressive. Very. And how do you con all these guys? Look, there's no doubt about Elizabeth had an incredibly persuasive persona and a very, very well-rehearsed story. She's a blonde girl going against evil medical companies, trying to save lives. She's a female Steve Jobs, basically. She's got the sexy baritone voice, sleeps 4 hours a day, and only has a water in her fridge. That's what she said. I'm not making this up. So, are you investing? Hell yeah. The board did ask her tough questions, of course, but poor old guys were fed contrived answers. And notably, look, the board was stacked with dignitaries, not scientists. And the most important point, let's not beat around the bush here. Holmes did it for money and fame. Money and fame. A big part of what she was doing in her company was to get rich, and she spent a ton of money on herself. She was telling journalists her apartment was the size of a mattress. But was it? Elizabeth, was it really? Ramesh Balwani, her weird boyfriend, and Holmes shared a ludicrously expensive mansion while working at Theranos. It was a full-blown mansion in Los Altos, California, approximately 6 miles from Theranos headquarters. Los Altos has been well considered one of the most expensive housing markets in the United States, of course. And Theranos was basically paying, her company was paying for all the expenses, monthly rent, whatever. She had this house, multiple chauffeurs, security detail, her own private jet. Well, let's take a jet, for example. From early days of the company, she had insisted on flying one. As the company's legal problems mounted over the years, its costs skyrocketed, but Holmes had a hard time weaning herself off certain luxuries. She still had her own personal security details, drivers, personal assistants, and a personal publicist who was on retainer for just $25,000 a month. By late 2017, however, Holmes had begun to slightly rein in the spending. She agreed to give up her personal jet, well, for traveling, not really a good look, and instead downgraded for very, very, very poor first class on a commercial airliner. But given that she was flying all over the world trying to get more funding for Theranos, she was spending tens of thousands of dollars per month on travel, and she was still paying for her mansion in Los Altos and her team of personal assistants and drivers. She wasted a ginormous amount of money on the design and monthly cost of company's main headquarters, which employees simply refer to as 1701, from its street name along Page Mill Road in Palo Alto. Monthly cost, monthly rent, ready for it? $1 million. Holmes spent $100,000 on a single conference table. A fucking table. And you're telling me you're trying to save people's lives and you're like hustling, you're asleep on the mattress? WTF, oh come on. And yes, she loved Hermes bags, with her favorite being Hermes Birkin bag with an average cost of $15,000. Well, it's not bad. As a matter of fact, employees inside Theranos were making jokes about Elizabeth spending quite a lot, and Hermes was one of those things on the list. But the biggest point of this all is that she didn't understand much about technology. And that's one of the biggest differences between her and all other entrepreneurs who did the real things, like Steve Jobs and other guys. The machine that they were developing, the whole Edison machine, that this was the one product that the company was trying to make, was a hot mess, like a complete mess. And if you understand anything about medical hardware and tolerances with which it's built, you just can't build it so fast. Like, this is the industry that is heavily regulated by FDA and other guys because human health and lives are at stake. And so Holmes literally just had a complete disregard for that. She literally cared only about PR and fundraising way more than any kind of patient care, because that's what it is. She literally was trying to get rich and make money and kind of act like Steve Jobs. That's super cool, but that's it. Everything else was a complete fake. When you hire very smart engineers who tell you that components can be made smaller to fit her Edison machine, you listen to them. And she didn't. Many employees knew Holmes machines couldn't be built. As one says, you just can't bend your way around the laws of physics. You can't just have a great marketing campaign and get around those things. And if they told senior management, Theranos senior management, they would be told, well, maybe you're not a Silicon Valley person. Look, Walgreens signed with Theranos before it had any results. And if they visited Theranos headquarters, they should have done that. They would have found broken parts, exploded centrifuges, and mechanisms gummed with sticky blood, and people working mostly with blood from untested volunteers scared of hepatitis. But the con girl couldn't outrun the truth. By 2017, Theranos had burned through nearly $1 billion, a third on lawyers, settling lawsuits with investors, and refunding every patient who took one of those bloody blood tests. Look, it's not physically possible to conduct hundreds of blood tests using a single drop of blood from a fingertip, let alone conduct those tests in a box from a size of a desktop printer. Like, no amount of VC capital funding or optimism or staring at you like this can bend this fundamental reality.
One of the headlines was $9 billion company down to zero. And your investors and your board members are reading those same things. It's probably the most important question I think anybody who's watching has about this. Does it work?
Yes,
You're confident in that?
I am confident in that.
But not only did she tell investors and partners and everyone who would listen that this was indeed possible, but that Theranos had invented a machine that was currently doing it, and doing it cheaper and more accurately than conventional equipment. But of course, what you want to know is, what was her exit plan? Like, she obviously wanted to be rich and famous. Her company would crash and burn, and in the end, she would say, well, we really tried, but we couldn't get it done. See, because venture capitalists lose money all the time. Like, Holmes knew that. Where she was wrong, and she what really underestimated, is that how big her lies got. And the fact that medical industry is so heavily regulated. And because patients' health is at stake, the criminal charges are coming. She absolutely expected to walk out of here unscathed. Absolutely. And this was her plan. She wasn't really that dumb to not understand that her idea would never work. But she knew better than anyone how brilliant it was for PR and marketing.
Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Her trial is ongoing right now, and she is about to testify about what exactly she's been doing since leaving Theranos. Well, in 2017, she became engaged to William Billy Evans, a 27-year-old heir to Evans Hotels, a family-owned group of hotels in San Diego. And look, she's very happy. They're having a great time. Instagram pictures look great, all smiles. So yeah, she found a new target, looks very happy. Her $1 billion con was almost successful, but not quite. Thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed this little story about Elizabeth Holmes, and I'll see you in the next one.
Our work is in the belief that access to health information is a basic human right. And